Now, can you tell me which configuration of the Atlas V that you guys will be using?
We are baselined on something called the 402, which is a standard Atlas without any solids. It's a liquid Atlas with a two-engine, dual-engine Centaur.
I do know that ULA is working on their advanced Centaur stage, and when that happens, would that be able to give you guys any sort of more weight capability as far as cargo is concerned?
Certainly, there are variations of the Atlas, which is one of the great things about working with Atlas. And I think when Lockheed designed it originally, they meant it to be a family of vehicles that allows for progression for heavier vehicles to be done. And if we were, for example, not taking people, we might be able to move to a different Atlas and be able to take a larger vehicle or more cargo up in the future. And we don't lose the continuity of all the work that we've done to date. We may have to do more work, but it allows us to at least contemplate other missions and other potentials.
Wonderful. Now, obviously the main destination is going to be the International Space Station, but do you guys have any future plans of collaborating with people like Bigelow or Excalibur or even the Russian commercial space station ideas to go to other destinations other than the ISS?
Well, I can comment on two areas. We don't comment about specific relationships, but we are designing a LEO transportation system, a low Earth transportation system, not a point solution for the space station. It's always been that way. So we viewed this from the very beginning, and I think NASA, in its very early days when they started the commercial program, said we're trying to stimulate an industry, not stimulate a solution, a single solution. One of the reasons we chose this design is because it has a lot of utility. It can be a great people mover to take 7 crew to the station or somewhere else, or be it Bigelow or some other place, or to no place, to be able to do work in space for the sake of doing work in space. It has a great cargo capability because it can bring cargo home in a very benign way. We come in at less than 2 Gs to a runway landing, so if you're doing very sensitive science work in space, one of the things you want to be able to bring it home. If you find a cure to a disease and you want to bring that cure home, you want to make sure it gets home in the easiest way possible, and we're able to do that. We also have the capability of staying on orbit for a long duration, probably longer than any other system manned, and for a very long time unmanned if we want to. And this is the development of hardware, but what it does is we think stimulate the people's minds who are out there saying, if I had this kind of tool, how could I use it? In ways that we may not even know right now, which is the excitement of it. No one really knew what the internet was going to do until we had broadband, and all of a sudden it became possible, and thousands of companies have sprung up as a result of that. Well, if we can get to space and show that you can get predictable, lower cost, low Earth orbit transportation, it then, we think, will spur a lot of people to think of space differently.
Now, once you guys are starting actual flights, do you have any sort of plans of having almost like a publicity campaign and landing at several different runways to expose the Dream Chaser to more of the public?
Yeah, one of the dreams that I have as part of this is that I believe that part of our obligation is not only to build a safe vehicle and provide transportation, but to show people that space is worthwhile. It's a good investment. It's a good place to put your life and your career. It's a good place to think about how you want to be creative. And I think one of the aspects of space that is a really interesting dichotomy is that we find that there are millions of people around the world who have a passion for it. You don't have to go very far than the latest science fiction movie or how many people went down to see the shuttle launch. And there's so much capacity, so much interest in it. But the truth of the matter is very few people have ever seen a space program up close and personal. Maybe in a museum if you went to Washington, D.C. or one of the other museums around the country, but not many. So we think our vehicle has a unique aspect in that because it has no hazardous materials on board, we can actually land at other places. And should we be able to work through all the regulatory questions around this, the ability to land in different states or different countries so that people can come and see and touch America's space program. Wouldn't it be terrific if the students who are working on an experiment in Wisconsin or New Mexico or Colorado could see the vehicle that brought their experiment home land in an airport in those states and come out and touch it and be able to understand it and talk to the people involved? I think it would be wonderful. And What we don't realize is how many people we can inspire and touch by what we do. And I'm constantly amazed by how many people come up to me and say, you know, you guys, by sticking with this and working it through and taking the hard risk, you've inspired me to go do something completely different. And that's the best thing that we could hear.
Now, regarding regulation, and without mentioning any sort of specific details, are you guys close to getting at least an experimental certification through the FAA to start the test flights and everything, or is that process already complete?
We have what's needed to do our test flights. Our partner is the Dryden Test Center with NASA, and we're testing at Edwards Air Force Base. And what we are doing with the vehicle right now, initially we have what we need to. But we have, I think, a very close working relationship with the FAA. I applaud what George Neal and others in that group are doing, because they're balancing their need to be a government regulatory body with the clear need to have the industry grow up and become part of it. They're applying intelligence and I think maturity to a new issue in a way that I think will be productive for all of us in the future.
Absolutely.